we're starting a little bit late. Ken's out on the road somewhere. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stuff together here. So, it's 6:04. We started. First off, let's have an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda as written. Got a second there, Larry?
I guess I could.
Thank you.
Thank you. So,
Call the question.
I was wondering what about the roll call.
Yes, we need to do the roll call.
Oh, yes, we got to get the right people in here.
Commissioner Kalani?
Here.
Commissioner Soa?
Here.
Commissioner McNeil?
Here.
Commissioners Anger and Humberston are absent.
Okay, then
Move to approve the agenda.
Second again.
There you go.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any negatives? Hearing none, accepted. And I see on the sheet that there's no one that wants to have a discussion or questions in the audience here. Okay, we'll continue. Okay, the first action item is the Riverside Park restroom temporary closure. And Todd, will continue with that.
Good evening, Commissioners. Tonight before, well, actually, we probably should have a motion first.
I can read it.
Oh, okay, yeah, excuse me. I'm out of practice.
Yeah, that's okay. I move the board to approve the temporary closure of the restrooms at Riverside Park until facilities can be brought up to ADA compliance. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
I have some questions.
So I'll proceed with the report if that's all right.
Yes.
So during a recent, well, as the board's aware, we have our facility at Riverside Park, and included as part of those facilities are restrooms that we recently completed an inspection of those facilities and have identified some deficiencies as part of those restrooms. Because these are known deficiencies, we want to ask the board to take actions to temporarily close the restrooms so that repairs can be made. Now this is a little bit unique, and I think part of the uniqueness of this action is the fact that there's been a recent Supreme Court ruling dealing with recreational immunity. And in the past, public entities that had certain protections under this recreational immunity, this recent Supreme Court ruling kind of brings into question what sort of protections public entities have when the public is using their facilities. We have consulted with our insurance agent and also Special Districts Association of Oregon, and they provided some guidance on what we should do. Some of the things they've asked all different districts to do is to kind of look at your facilities, which we've completed, make sure we're documenting that inspection, and then prepare to make repairs as noted from the inspection. And then finally, if these deficiencies are known, they do suggest that we close or take action to close or shut down the areas of activity until the repairs can be made. That's why we're bringing this before the board this evening is more of a precaution. Our plan is to, we do have some funds in the budget that will allow us to make some, what we call some basic repairs to make it operable. And, but then we would also be working on a broader plan for the whole Riverside Park that we'll be discussing with the board in the future, so.
Are there any agencies from the general public that are offering to contribute to this?
So this, right now, what we're talking about with this first phase is just trying to get it more operable. So it's not it's in essence fixing our existing facility that we have. Where we would envision additional agencies participating would be on the broader plan. So this is really more of a Band-Aid fix at this point, I would characterize it.
I got two questions. One, do the restrooms stay open year-round, or, okay, so they're year-round, and so, I don't know how much use the park is getting right now, but I would imagine it's still fairly well used as long as the weather's good. Would it make sense to put portable potties down there for the interim until we solve them, and then maybe lock them at the same time we lock the gate?
That's a great question, and something I should have pointed out is, right now, the Little League uses the area, and they actually bring in some porta potties in addition. And then, given this temporary closure, we would bring in some additional porta potties as a temporary measure too, just so.
Because we could bring in an ADA porta potty,
Yep.
right, and cover that thing, that way they could hang us or not.
Yeah, and we actually have.
Accommodating, yeah.
We have one porta potty down there right now.
Yeah.
So we're not,
Yeah,
we're trying to provide an option for folks in the meantime.
About a year ago, we were looking at a contract to have a new restroom facility built. What happened to that?
So I'm not familiar with that exact contract. We have been working with the Marine Board on some grants. And so we're still working through that process. And so in fact, they're supposed to come out this fall and do another kind of site visit. And then Karen, I don't know if you have any more to add. So we haven't, we're trying to work with some of the other entities like the Marine Board and those folks on identifying what grants opportunities might be.
We had a work session.
Yeah,
We had a work session on
it's
this.
been quite a while.
It has. And didn't we have money in the budget, Carol?
Do a little
We
bit.
do
Yeah, there's
have
some.
$50,000 in the
Right,
budget,
yeah.
and we have not spent that money
Right.
yet.
Is that what you're gonna use for the repairs?
That, we'll use some of that for the basic.
I just wondered what we're gonna tell the public when it's a very highly used area. Why have we doodled along and didn't get the restroom started and built when we were supposed to?
Yeah, so I'm not familiar with us ever actually having a final plan on moving forward with the restrooms and improvements to the park, but I know we're still in a discussion phase with the state on the grant proceeds, because they haven't released that yet to us. And we're still talking to them.
Will this restroom closure result in the locking of the gate so people can't get in there?
No. Just simply the restroom portion. They'll still be able to use the boat ramp, and again, there'll still be other facilities, porta potty temporary facilities there for people who are using the park.
Anything else? Any questions?
Call the question.
Call for the question.
I will remind you, you have three commissioners, so we need 3 affirmative votes to move forward on anything.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Larry, are you voting or not?
Yes, but I expect a monthly update until we find out why things are not moving along.
3 ayes,
Yeah, 3 ayes.
passes. Next item, declaration of surplus property.
Ready for the motion?
Yes.
I move the board approve the listing of surplus property of fiscal year 16-17 to be disposed of in accordance with Oregon statutes and local contract review board rules. Do we have a second? Thank you.
I believe annually, staff brings to you a list of items that are
Yeah.
surplus, hodgepodge of different materials that we'd like to get rid of, and so we asked the
A lot
board
of
for your
stuff.
approval.
Cleanhouse.
A lot of stuff, right.
Any
The
questions?
list that came with the packet didn't list anything that, major costs or anything to that, so
No.
I'll support it if we haven't ran anything in at the last minute.
Nope. What you saw is what we're proposing.
Any other questions? Call for the
Question?
question.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? Next action is the intake repair acceptance.
Ready? I move to authorize the general manager to implement a, yeah, that's the wrong one. It's this one right here. I move the board to approve the temporary, yeah, that's the wrong one. Where is it? Number 3.
You're getting closer.
I'm trying. I'm looking for it. There's 3. Here we go. I move that the board accept the water treatment plant intake repair project number CIP 14-5173 and execute the notice of acceptance establishing the project completion date as of September 8th, 2016.
Second?
I'll second it.
Any questions?
Do we have a staff?
So Joe's available to
Yeah.
provide staff
Yeah.
report and answer any questions.
So we all ready for winter?
We are all ready for winter.
Good.
In brief, the project went very well. The in-water work lasted almost 2 weeks. The contractor got in, got out, left a clean site, installed erosion control on the access road, and we're ready for winter. There was approximately 5 plus or minus feet of fill placed over the exposed pipe, fairly large rock, with some infill smaller rock. The small eroded concrete in the intake structure itself was blown free of any loose debris, and the grout bags were stuffed in, and the grout was pumped in and filled that void. And the bags themselves will degrade over time through erosion or abrasion, but the grout itself is a very high-strength grout, which will last for many, many years. As a deliverable, at the end of the project, the contractor did provide a final report with some pictures and a description of the work that was completed, and we can make that available to anyone who requests it. And I'll give Karen a copy so that she can provide this information when you want here.
Very good, thank you. Question?
How much did the final cost overrun from what we originally?
There was no cost overrun on this project. This project was delivered, procured through kind of a quasi-design build methodology. And I say quasi because the design and the build were not in one joint contract. We employed the same contractor to both design and build the project because they're specialists in this underwater work. The design work came in under budget by about, well, the budget was 45.5 and they came in, it was a time and material design contract, 36,000, so almost $10,000 under. The construction was a lump sum and there were no change orders on that project.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Different. Uh, Here for, to accept the draft motion, or the motion?
Are you calling the question?
Yeah, call the question. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay, number 4, action item. Approval of hardship leak adjustment program and rates by Carol.
Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the general manager to implement a leak adjustment program and establish a leak adjustment rate of $1.50 per CCF effective September 8, 2016.
Here, a second.
Second.
It's all yours.
Okay. So basically, this is a follow-up on the discussion that we had at the August 22nd work session. We estimate the fiscal impact would be a reduction of revenues of about $50,000 annually. The $1.50 rate will cover the basic cost of producing and delivering the water, but does not include any contribution to our depreciation or to our capital reserves, but it's limited to short-term water loss due to leaks in customer system. It's not an ongoing sustainable rate. If approved, at this time, the general manager would establish that $1.50 per CCF rate for the short-term leak relief, effective tomorrow, because we're not going to process any leak reliefs this evening. The rate would be then reviewed annually and would be included in the fees and charges ordinance that we'll bring to the board in the spring. You recall this last spring we did the ordinance, and so there are 2 readings, and that will encompass all of our rates and charges. So if we determine that we need to increase that rate to make sure that we're covering the cost, then that will be presented at that time every year. And then in addition, we'll provide a payment plan for our customers, particularly if they have a pretty large bill. We try to keep that to a full payout in 6 months, but there are a few situations where it has to be extended a little bit longer. And the requirement for that payment plan to stay in place is that they maintain current payments on their regular bi-monthly bills.
Question. Is there any mechanism to track frequent flyers that constantly want to?
Absolutely, and we can put in limits of, I don't know, I think like City of Portland will give you one in every 5 years, some people do different things. We did have a customer that repaired a leak and then got a different leak and then got a different leak, and the resolution to that was replace the entire water line from the meter to the home, which did happen, and all of a sudden the leak stopped.
So our rate increase went in July 1, is that right?
It actually was effective with the June
It
30th
was?
bill,
Okay.
yeah,
Because I got a text message from my renter complaining about their water bill.
yeah.
And I had to explain to them, well, here's the deal.
Yeah, yeah. And this is the 3rd year on the rate increase that does not impact the tiers. Next year, it's a smaller amount on the base and
Right.
will impact the tiered portion as well.
Explain that. This is an 8-year program.
Will each case be evaluated so that we know for sure that it wasn't because somebody left a bottle running or something like that?
Absolutely, we send staff out to, generally to make sure that there is a leak and that the leak has been repaired. So it does take staff time going out a couple of times. Although we do have customers that discover the leak on their own and fix it, but we do verify that the leak has been fixed before we allow any relief on the bill.
Will we send an inspector out to make sure that all claims are valid?
We just checked that it has been repaired. We ask for documentation of receipts, but a lot of people do their own plumbing, but they show us their Home Depot receipts. Most people also provide pictures, so they show us, yeah, we dug a trench in the front yard, here's where the break was. So we do get a lot of documentation, and that's part of the process.
Do you allow them to make payments on a monthly basis, given the fact that they may have a large overage?
Yes, that's typically what we do is, you know, as an example, we would say $50 on the off months, and then $50 plus your regular bill on the month that you get the bill. Because again, we would like to have it paid off within 6 months, and most of the time it is. We've had a few that were very large, and we extended that time period a little bit longer.
You good?
Okay.
We have to call the vote? We have to
Call
call
the
the vote.
question.
Aye.
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 Okay, we have the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Oh, excuse me.
It was moved and seconded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Unanimous? Okay. The debt covenant compliance reporting. Carol?
So every year, I come to the board with information about meeting our debt covenants or not, hopefully meeting. This doesn't have to be a presentation to the board. I could simply send you a letter, but I think it's important that we share this in a public meeting and that everybody kind of knows where we are. So this is my required reporting to the board. You do have the letter in your board packet. It's based on unaudited financial activity from last year. We're pretty much done with all of our adjusting entries, so the numbers are not likely to change much, if at all, and both covenant requirements have been met. We have the 100% coverage, where we look at our gross revenues excluding system development charges, and we take out our operating expenses, and that net revenue has to be equal to our debt service. And so that would be 100% coverage, and in this particular year, we met that comfortably with a 637% coverage. The second coverage that we have is looking at those same numbers, except we add in our SDC revenues, our system development charge revenues, as well as the interest that we earn on money in the system development. And that needs to be at 125% coverage, and in this case, we were at 746. So while everybody gets excited, oh, you know, maybe we have too much revenue, next year our debt service is going to be a lot higher. Next year our debt service is going to be 1.2 million, and that will bring these numbers down into kind of the realm that we would expect. And as the board approved the rate increases over time, it was to make sure that we could cover the debt coverage that we now have for the funding that we got for the backbone.
Still nice to have a cushion like that.
Yeah.
And I would be happy to answer any questions.
You good?
Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. Call for the question?
No question.
No question.
No questions, that's right.
Number 6.
Information, very good. Okay, management report, Todd?
Great, good evening again, Commissioners. A few things I want to highlight. Included in your packet is agenda item 6, which has a bunch of text as far as some different updates, but I do want to add some things. First off, with relations to the Regional Water Providers Consortium, a couple of things to update you on. Actually, yesterday we had an opportunity to meet and discuss planning for seismic resiliency, and so it was very interesting to get some perspectives as far as how to incorporate seismic resiliency planning as part of your water system master planning process. Also the importance of public communication as it relates to illustrating why it's important to have a water system that's functioning, or at least a plan on how you're going to function after a major event. And then we also had an opportunity to listen to the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, DOGAMI for short, to share some of the tools that they have that we can use today, but then also they're working on some tools that are of interest to Clackamas County here that probably will be available September of next year that will kind of help us with our damage assessments as it relates to different earthquake events. Last month I reported also as it relates to the consortium that the Metro regional government had sent a letter expressing interest in withdrawing from the Regional Water Providers Consortium effective next year. We tried to explore that a little bit more, tried to find out some details. It frankly came as a little bit of a surprise to the Metro staff, the decision that was made and the fact that the letter was sent. So there's going to be a little bit of an attempt to approach some of the Metro commissioners to dig into that a little bit more and encourage them to reconsider that decision before they adopt their final budget. So it's about a $21,000 impact to the consortium.
I was at the executive board meeting last night, so just to add to that, they are going to try and see if they can entice Metro back in. If we tightened our budget for the consortium as a whole a little bit, we might be looking at a 2.5% rate increase or dues increase to each district. For us, that means about $650 potentially, but that decision's not made, and it won't be made probably until early next year. So there'll be plenty of time to plan for it.
So what are the pluses and negatives of that, of them leaving the?
Well, they a lot of what they do is regional coordination, and the Regional Water Providers Consortium, you know, is a group of water providers that are trying to coordinate things from a regional perspective. You know, we talk about emergency preparedness, we talk about water use, we talk about planning, all of these things we think would be of interest to Metro. However, admittedly, it doesn't directly relate. However, in the Metro Charter, it does talk about water planning as well. So there seems to be that logical nexus as it relates to that. So we'll try to dig into that a little bit more. It was a little bit of a surprise, and once we heard that it was a surprise to staff, that became a little bit more shocking.
Well, if this goes through, if they do pull out, what are the alternatives for the rest of us? How do we manage without them?
Yeah.
The consortium is about 25 or 26 agencies combined. We'll manage without them. The advantage to us as a district is that because of state mandates regarding conservation and emergency management and educating the public on conservation, that sort of thing. If we had to do that in our jurisdiction by ourselves, it would cost us a lot more than that $26,000 fee that we pay currently as a member. Because we're in a consortium, this is done broad-based, and we get some pretty good bang for our buck on a lot of the advertising and things that goes on for that. We may have to tighten the budget a little bit in terms of some of the media outreach. And one of the staff members is going to take a slight cut in hours, but that will be picked up by Portland, who wants to use her time for something else. So it's not going to be a dramatic change in what they do at this point.
Yeah, we'll function just fine without them, but it is nice to have them at the table.
Yeah.
So, as it relates to the Regional Water Providers Consortium Board, the next meeting is on October 5th, so we'll report from that at your October board meeting. I want to move on now with the Clackamas River Water Providers. Just wanted to note a couple things. One, I've just shown you a copy. You don't have a handout. It just came today, their annual report. If you're interested in receiving a report on all the different activities that they've been involved in and educational programs and studies and the ways that we've cooperated within the watershed, that report's available. We'd be happy to get you a copy if you're interested. Also, want to note you have received an invitation for the watershed tour. That's going to be on October 1st. It's a full day, but if you're interested in going, please let Karen or Kelly know, and we'll get you registered for that. We do ask that you let us know before the 23rd. That's the deadline to get things organized as it relates to that. Wanted just to remind you that we do have a September work session. That's going to be on September 26th at 6 p.m. We have a number of items that we'll be discussing that are included in your board packet as kind of preview of topics. As it relates to emergency management, a couple things. One, just make sure you're aware, September is Emergency Preparedness Month, and so one of the things that Clackamas Fire District 1 is doing is putting out 20 little vignettes or videos as it relates to how we can all be better prepared. Tomorrow, actually, the topic will be emergency water supply, and so Don Leonard of Clackamas Water here has participated in that effort, and so that will be something that will be distributed around the region as a reminder of how folks can learn how to prepare an emergency. We'll also share some of the information from the Regional Water Providers Consortium as well.
I was reading South Forks last, well, they don't have every month anymore, but the last 7 minutes were in there. And I noticed that they were applying for 2 water filtration systems like was bought on a grant for a total of $300,000. I don't know, I'm glad they are. I was surprised to see that they were appropriated that kind of money, but. Yeah.
Sorry. They're doing that on their own?
Yeah, what it looks like to me. I don't see any grant associated with it
Awesome.
or anything, yeah, you know, but I thought maybe we could find out what's up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
be curious what's up on that, so
Yeah.
that would be good. We'll follow up.
Yeah, thanks.
The other thing too is I just want to note as part of that report that we are proceeding with the board's direction of securing VHF radio licenses, so we've got a process in place to move forward as it relates to that. Also included in your packet is some additional information about the reservoir RFQ response. We received pretty good response as it relates to our 152nd reservoir engineering design and also the Redlands reservoir design. So that process is continuing to select 1 or 2 engineering firms to assist with that. Also, reminder to the board, the Butterfield project has started. I will note on Wednesday we did have a little traffic hiccup as it relates to the construction. That was an unfortunate circumstance that was obviously something we didn't intend to happen, but it did delay the morning commute. We've since worked with the contractor in the county to rectify that situation in the future, and we'll do a good job of watching that. Right now, the project has now progressed down to part of Potter Road, and so there's detour signs that are out with alternative routes and a lot of signage as it relates to local traffic impacts. Also, actually just today, the Butterfield conditional land use hearing was also held, and so we didn't have anybody that expressed any concerns as it relates to that. And so our hope is that we'll get a speedy decision so that we can then get that permit in place, and what that will allow us to do is to do the work on the northern part of the Butterfield project that's in a private roadway. A couple items that are not specifically mentioned in the general manager's report, but at least one of them is included in your packet, is we do have a copy of the Oregonians' recent series entitled Bringing Oregon, a variety of information there in their reporting as it relates to water use in Oregon, particular groundwater and the interface between irrigation and stream flows and so on. So that's included in your packet for your review. And then we have, did this get handed out? Okay, and so also, as one of your handouts is the most recent report as far as river flows. So note that in September, the target flows that are mentioned in our water management and conservation plan will be bumped up. The good news is recently we have had some increased flows that have been very helpful. Some of that might also be a little bit of contribution from some releases from Timothy Lake too.
I was wondering, because with the amount of water that we got in the hill, I would have expected a better bump than we got. We got a good temperature change, right, so our temperature, we're doing really good, but I expected to see, I mean, driven through there, it was pouring, I figured. You know,
The good
but they
news is
did,
it's
so they
going in
did,
the right direction.
so they did call for a release on that.
So as part of, they're in the process of trying to, drop the reservoir level right now, to prepare for some work downstream. So that concludes my general manager's report.
Good, thank you. Okay, is there any comments or questions from the public? Commissioners' reports and reimbursements.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to apologize for having been late. I got caught in traffic like I don't think I have seen.
I know, I came through today, and I was amazed. 2 hours from Beaverton, 2 hours from Beaverton.
1 hour from north, actually 1 hour and 15 minutes from Baggy Road in Lako
Right.
to here. Unbelievable. Anyway, my apologies.
Accepted.
Want to adjourn the meeting?
Yeah. Hearing nothing else, adjourn.
Thank you.